This is the A. I'm Reg Clay.
And Norman G.
This is the A, where we talk about life in the theater and the theater of life.
Yay!
As always, we are sponsored by Central Works, a new play theater headed up by Gary Graves and Jan Zweifler. Central Works, reinventing theater one play at a time. We want to thank Central Works for sponsoring us and our wonderful consulting producer, Mallory Samara. We have a wonderful guest. This is a guest who was our first guest. Now, we've done the Yay since April of 2017. At first, it was just Norman and I, and then our first guest that we brought on was Jerome Gentes, and Jerome is back. Jerome, how are you doing?
Oh, guys, thanks so much for having me. It's fantastic to see you again over Zoom even, and it's great to be back. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the guests that come on the Yay really enhance the Yay. I mean, we've had writers and directors and people sharing their stories, people being very, very, what's the word, vulnerable, sharing us all sorts of intimate stories. And it's helped the Yay grow. We're in our 6th year of doing this, and you were the first to kick us off. And God, when I listened to our first that podcast, the audio was horrible. We were just sort of figuring things out, and but we have grown, and so have you. For those who don't know, you were the executive director of Play Cafe / Musical Cafe, and now you and your husband are now in Palm Beach, California, living the good life. And you have started your new project, Tiger Beat Productions. Do you want to briefly talk about Tiger Beat Productions and what's going on there?
Absolutely. So just to be clear, it's Tiger Bear.
I'm sorry, Tiger Bear.
Tiger Bear.
I can't read.
I was like, wow, you're bringing back the teen magazine. Yes.
Sorry, Tiger Bear. Yes.
I would love to be young enough to be a Tiger Beat production, but I'm more like the tired old Tiger Beat. Guys, thanks again for having me. So Tiger Bear Productions, I launched it in 2019 as an independent production company, and at the time had no idea what I would be doing with it, other than making stories happen every way we can. That's our mission. And I chose that mission. We chose that mission because we knew that across the arts, there are so many stories that we need to hear, that deserve to be here. And we didn't want to limit ourselves to saying that we would be theater only, because we wanted to stay flexible. And that turned out to be a real blessing, because the flexibility and size that we have allowed us to pivot very quickly. For example, when we all went to virtual versions of telling stories and so on. My husband and I did move down here to Palm Springs in 2020. We were just talking about this right before COVID, literally February 2020. It was yet another kind of blessing. We were planning to do this anyway. He started a business here, and then I was able to, this is a funny, so I was working full-time in Silicon Valley at a tech firm, and I said, can I work remote, full-time, or at least close to full-time, so that I can move down with my husband, because we couldn't move down here without putting our house in the Bay Area on the market. So, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money, kind of traveling back and forth. And the company certainly wasn't going to put me up. And
right.
I wasn't going to ask any friends to do that. They wouldn't be friends anymore.
Oh, I doubt that.
But yeah, so the company said, oh, okay, well, let's do this on a trial basis. And as we all know, that trial basis became something all of us were doing, for our lives and for our health, and for our community's health. And I came to Palm Springs, and probably the biggest thing that happened was that because everything was shut down, the only examples of what I had of what I wanted to do or could be doing now were the things other people were doing, which was like, doing Zoom broadcasts, and doing, a lot of people pivoted into podcasting, which is great. And audio dramas and all the things. It was actually a very, I think, exciting moment for theater because it leveled the playing field so fast that that was a blessing, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to fix a light here, but I think you guys were ahead of the curve as far as the whole COVID-19, and also just mixing film with theater. I think we were talking, Jerome, that Playground is basically doing that. There are cameras now that are coming onto the stage, and theater is incorporating streaming, and I think that may be the new normal, and it's very exciting for actors. It's exciting for playwrights who are like, wow, actually my family in the East Coast can see, what I'm doing instead of actually coming out here, because they can just go online and view it. So I think that's a wonderful new development. We'll talk more about that. Norman, go ahead.
Well, I was saying before we jumped in that we had just had Playground just had a brainstorming meeting, and that was one of the discussions was the Potrero stage space is now set up with cameras. So it's, we have to rethink what we do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's a wonderful development. Sometimes evolution can be gradual. Sometimes evolution is forced. And I think this COVID-19, although it's a tragedy and a lot of people died, sort of helped create a sort of new normal. Norman, as I begin every podcast, how was your week?
I feel like I'm just doing too many things. I'm teaching, I'm directing Tempest with a group of 7th graders. I am preparing for 2 standardized patient things. We're at a UCSF medical. These medical students have to learn how to talk to real people. It's not all science. You actually have to engage with a human being. Sometimes a human being who doesn't take the medications you tell them to take or do the changes that you tell them to do. So I've been preparing for a couple of those, and just had my last understudy rehearsal yesterday for Water by the Spoonful. We got this weekend and then next weekend, and then who knows what's next. And then next weekend was going to be a panic. So I actually do need to talk to you more about that, Rich, because now what was going to be a really tight, crazy day is wide open. The auditions for maskers for Compared to What have been moved to May. So
yeah.
I'm trying to get used to the idea that I've got space to breathe.
Yeah, and I've got some exciting news. I'm in. Well, I think I've told you about Pear Slices, so I'm involved in that. Yep. I'm acting in 2 roles in that. 2 wonderful pieces written by Anyu Mikabori. Yep. But also, I've just been cast in N.A. Daisy's world famous Lechon, which is a Bindlestiff piece.
Oh.
So that will be taking up my time in June. Rehearsals in May.
Damn.
So,
yay.
And that's a nice fat paycheck, and it was one of those things, and it's one of the cool things about interaction, and one of the cool things about the Yay. So I got an email from Eko Yamamoto, basically saying, hey, they're looking for a Black actor, and I immediately did my video audition, basically reading some slides, and I sent it to Aurino Mario, and the very next day she was like, guess what, you're cast. So that's really, really awesome. But it's one of those things where you start one thing of interaction with we start the Yay as just a way of people to talk about what's going on in the theater world or whatever, but it also becomes a way of connecting, and you can say, hey, I see this other person or whatever, like Lamont Rigel. He's been talking about just shows that he's seen, and he wants to get my reaction as a Black person. Hey, what'd you think about that or this or whatever? So the Yay has become a platform where people can network, people can interact, can talk about certain things. And so it's been really, really fantastic. Let's talk about some current events. So there's been, there's a show, I don't know if you know the show Tori Stone. It's at Arena Stage, or it was at Arena Stage. Tori Stone is basically the first woman who played in the Negro League.
Oh.
and that's been that Arena Stage was going to tell that story. However, the actress Santoya Fields basically shut down the entire production because of inappropriate behavior by one of the other actors during the rehearsal process. And I thought it would be something cool that we could talk about. Of course, Jerome, I want you, we're going to talk about you, and we're going to talk about Tiger Bear. But I think this is an interesting thing because we've had women talk about being, people being inappropriate. And in Arena State, they even had this is an article from the Washington Post, by the way. She basically says that there's in the rehearsal process in scene 2, one actor was supposed to grab her by the arm and pull her. And she wrote an email to the stage manager and the director saying, hey, listen, I really did not enjoy that. Can we not do that? And the director was like, okay, that's fine. The actor during preview basically did it anyway. And basically she wrote in another email, and I think she's equity, and basically got her equity representative, and she took a lot of sick days. I didn't know you could do that in theater.
Yeah.
You can take, I don't think you've done that before. Have you taken a sick day? Well, I mean, if you've been sick, but a sick day is sort of the way the articles.
I can't remember ever doing it, but it's been discussed more in recent years as a normal workplace thing, and that is now accepted, as most places accept that. That's that.
Yeah.
Before, if you did it, it was always a wow. Are we firing you? Are we replacing you? And now it's just, oh nope, you're take the day. We'll see you. We'll reconfigure you.
And the way the article places it is this: she's using these sick days as a form of protest to say, but also she's also dealing psychologically with the. I think she's 25 years old. She's a young actress. To make a long story short, she took so many sick days that Arena Stage basically says, we're shutting down the entire production. I think they lost about $250,000. They had to give money back to people who bought tickets and all of that sort of stuff.
Right.
It opens up this whole, I mean, we've had these conversations about how to treat actors in the workplace. But also as an actor, I mean, how did the two of you feel? I mean, have you ever been pushed in a situation where you can actually shut down a production? Because that's almost like the last button that you would push.
It's dangerous. I mean, we live in a different time. There would have been back in the day, that would have been one of those, you get labeled a diva, prima donna, and you might be blacklisted. Now, I don't know. Now, things are weird. Things are so in flux. I don't know, Jerome.
How do you feel, Jerome, about that?
Yeah, I'm just sort of skimming the story in the Post. Wow.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I did. What an unfortunate unfolding of events. I have not had to shut down an entire production, and certainly hope that I never do. I feel like, just glancing at the particulars, I feel like what I would want to do is try to maximize the possibility of healing, a learning experience for the organization or myself, or kind of like, what haven't we heard before? What do we need to know that we're doing wrong? I do really like to intervene if people don't feel safety in the workplace is so important, regardless of theater or not. And so there's, considering what we do in theater and any other kind of live anything that involves human beings, in fact, even the environment and the planet, it's like the things that we do there should be a kind of safety first approach with anything. And if someone doesn't feel safe, Reg, I can tell you, so like I worked at, I won't name the organization. I worked at another organization before. So this was my kind of like my learning curve for, as a producer, and an actor broke through an elevated riser. maybe 2 or 3 days before we were supposed to open. I'm just going to say it was very, very close. And, you know, it was dramatically close. And I said, we are stopping right now. You know, it was not me. It was a collective decision. Thank goodness. Everyone was smart enough to know, like, we're stopping right now until that is fixed. We cannot proceed with anything we're doing. It's a safety hazard. It was a safety hazard even then when, you know, it's like if someone's doing something as simple, quote unquote, as like hanging curtains, you know, what if they trip and fall on that hole? Or like, what if they fall towards that hole and then the jagged edge of it, you know, injures them further? So there are things like this that are not just physical, you know, risks and dangers that we really want to avoid and shut down, but also, you know, spiritual ones, emotional ones, psychological ones. I'm really sorry that this is happening. I'll definitely be reading more on it to learn what I can from it.
Yeah, and you have a unique position because, you know, you've also been on stage, but you've also been behind stage as a producer and as a creator and allowing other people to tell their stories. And usually there's a mindset of, we want to make sure this environment is comfortable, is safe. And reading, well, I'm sure you've dealt with producers or let's say directors who are they're more focused on the story. They're like, listen, I just, you know, I have this great story in my mind and I have, you know, everything mapped out in my head as how things are going to go. I don't want one actor or one actress to disrupt what's going on. Sometimes that mentality can get in the way of safety. And I don't know if as a producer, you've had to deal with, let's say, a director who may not have the safety of the actors in mind, or the vision is more important than the actors.
That's what I was saying before. That attitude is now being questioned and challenged because of simple issues like safety. It's like, yeah, your vision, that's great, but if you can't figure out a way to do this safely, you know, or without putting somebody in a compromising position, maybe, you know, you need to check yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we could talk about other things, but I thought that this is very interesting. And of course, it deals with theater.
Right. Well, the big one,
Go ahead.
there's a CNN story. Apparently, people are talking off the record, but they're saying that Diane is losing her mind.
Oh, Diana
Diane
Feinstein.
is
Yeah,
not.
I
They're
really,
saying that she's
yeah,
really not capable. She doesn't know what meeting she's in.
yeah.
And I'm
It's
like,
it's sad because you hear, I mean, I guess they were saying the same thing about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know, just before the last days.
mm,
But, you know, when I think about articles like that, we're all getting there. I mean, you know, I feel, I mean, Diane, sure, her faculties may be bad, but, you know, even she herself is saying, I don't understand what the problem is. I mean, I don't know if it's a Republican thing where they just want to get her off the seat or to embarrass us, where someone wants to take her seat.
well,
Um,
nobody's trying to take her seat, but that's the defense right now is, well, what about those Republicans? And I'm like, period. If you're over 80, we should be checking you like yearly or every other year and kind of going, you know, just the basics. Are you really with it?
yeah,
I agree, Norman. I think we should, and I was thinking, like, couldn't we do this with love? You know, because if she was our grandmother, wouldn't we be saying, like, you know, hey, grandma, wouldn't, you know, how are you doing? You know, how are you feeling? Whatever. I'm going through this with my father right now, in fact, and we said we were going to put him in assisted living. We were kind of planning on that all during COVID. And then finally we're like, we should ask him what he wants. And he's lucid enough to be able to say, like, I really want to stay in this home, you know, where
Yeah.
he and my mother lived together until she passed. And I thought, you know, there's our answer. We don't have to do this for convenience for us or
Right.
because we think he's lonely or whatever. So we have to go visit him or whatever more
Yeah.
often. You know, let's give him what he wants. He's earned it. So I think we can, however, do the approach. This is a big question of mine. Like, we are living so long.
Yes.
mm-hmm.
I was telling someone, like, we are now at a point where we have 7 generations living together.
Wow.
We have members
Really?
of yeah, there are surviving members of the silent generation still with us.
Yeah.
And we have Generation Alpha. If you go through that there's 7. That is not something we are prepared
Is that
for.
normal? Yeah.
It's not normal. It's a testament to the quality of life we've had, historically, more than maybe say now. It's like there was such a big push towards healthcare and education at a certain time of life, like a couple generations ago. We were talking about the cost of education in California and where we rank nationally now compared to where it was when I was in school. And I'm like, oh my God, California was once the world example of what public education was like, an education period. And there's several generations, the boomers, the Gen Xers, and the early millennials who benefited from that big time. What do we do with it? So I feel for, I just would, whatever Diane does, let's be dignified and let's not weaponize her age or her mental health.
Exactly.
Yeah. At least that,
Yeah, and I looked at that story from that perspective to say, let's at least see some examples of her diminishing, or her, let's say a miscue, or even her herself saying, listen, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, all of us, my dad is 70, I believe he's 70 years old. He's still relatively young. So he's not there yet. My mom is staying with my sister, and I thank God for my sister for taking care of mom, who has been up and down, and she's been struggling with cancer, but also just age. It's funny. I think we've talked about this before. Every time I go back to DC, it's like you have a snapshot of your parents, when you were last there. And every time you see them, especially if it's been a long time, all of a sudden reality goes totally against that image that you have. It's like, oh my God, she's lost weight. Or, oh my God, there are more wrinkles that I saw beforehand.
Well, it's
And
similar like when you're growing up, and grandma, grandpa used to be the big people, and then you become an adult and you're like, wow, I'm bigger than you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it's very similar.
Yeah.
So,
Very
wow,
much so.
I don't look to you as the adult authority figure anymore. You're just another adult, and now I have to figure out how to deal with you as as an adult.
And you're right, Jerome. We have to treat them with respect. What were you saying, Jerome?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, yeah, and empathize, kind of put ourselves in their shoes. Like, I remember the first time my mother came to the door of her house when I went to visit her, and she didn't recognize me. And I was like, that was the first time it happened. I could see it in her eyes. And I was like, we've reached this point. There may be a moment where she recognizes me in the future, but this is a threshold that's been crossed, and it will be crossed again and again. Yep. How can I be here for her?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I tried to squeeze some fun stuff in here. A woman tried to glue herself on the basketball court. I don't know if you heard about this. This happened in Toronto. So the NBA playoffs are beginning, and there are actually a couple of players who won't be playing because of COVID-19. They've been affected. One still will not get vaccinated at all, Kyrie Irving. I'm not even going to talk about that. Right. But a woman, she's an activist, because the owner of the Timberwolves, Minnesota Timberwolves, a guy named Glenn Taylor, he owns, I guess, a chicken processing farm, and I guess they're not doing the right things with chickens. And so this woman, to protest, tried to glue herself onto the NBA the floor.
Yeah, how did that work?
Well, she didn't quite get there. They got her off, but that was an interesting thing. And also, there's a woman, Sherry Papani, in California, who claimed to have been a kidnapped victim, but it was realized that she actually just hung out with her boyfriend, and now she's being prosecuted for faking a kidnapping. This is like Girl Gone. I don't know if you saw that movie, Girl Gone, with Ben Affleck. So she's being charged for that. And the very last thing, and then we can get into a story with Jerome. And it's one thing that I'm following because I work in the legal field. Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, will hear arguments about prayer in schools. So the Republicans, they're trying all sorts of things. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about abortion and how so many states are trying to bring back abortion, are bringing back abortion. I'm sorry, pro-life, stopping abortion.
Yes.
That's what I meant. And now they're trying to bring back prayer in schools. So that argument will be heard on April the 24th. So the Republican Party, they're emboldened. They want to push their agenda. So we'll see.
So this is a case that Ketanji will hear.
Yeah.
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 Well, I'm all for that.
I don't know when Stephen Breyer is going to leave, but that will be
leaving in June. So
Right.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder when it'll come. Oh, late April. So it will be before.
Yeah. We'll see how long the arguments it will be. But it's a wonderful thing to have Ketanji Brown Jackson in, but still the Republicans have a majority in the Supreme Court. I mean, are you more enlightened? I'm sorry, are you more optimistic, Jerome? Or do you feel that there's still this undercurrent? Trump may be gone, but there's still this Republican undercurrent that's attacking, civil liberties and all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's a tragedy of some other dimension that the Republican Party, which preserved the Union, has evolved and shrunk to this petty, kind of ridiculous kind of thing that it would. I will say that in a way, it doesn't surprise me when Gore versus Bush was still a thing, and the whole Bush cabal was running the government, and I said, this isn't going to go away. And I kept saying to my peers, I would say, this is going to get worse, a lot worse, before it was going to get better. I had no idea. My idea of what worse was not as bad as this. So the floor keeps lowering, and it's just the one thing we haven't done yet is start an all-out civil war. But I do believe that on some level one is being conducted. It's kind of like
you're pushing for it.
Yeah, it's like a cold civil war at the very least. It's just I just hope it doesn't play out with violence and loss of life, further violence and loss of life to people, because it could get very, very bad. I mean, just look what happened in New York the other day. I thought, we are so...
the shootings. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
How lucky can we be that guy's gun jammed? It's like, if he had an automatic rifle, it would have been a very different headline. And it's, yeah.
Yeah, the extremism. I mean, and you talk about the origins of, I guess, the extremism, or when extremism within the Republican Party sort of took over. I mean, I remember Newt Gingrich, the Contract with America, the backlash to Clinton being president, and the Swift Boat veterans, the backlash of Bush's reelection, or no, the Kerry. It was Kerry who was running against Bush. So you have these groups who do, whatever they can to, push their agenda. And then you have the emergence of Sarah Palin, and you probably heard Sarah Palin is running again, this time as governor. No, as senator. She wants to be senator. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. But, she feels emboldened, and a lot of these folks feel emboldened. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's, very, very serious.
Yeah.
Well, it's like there's a writer that I believe in very much, Italo Calvino, and he says, one of the reasons he never followed politics in Italy, and he grew up in Italy post-war. So you can imagine that he went through a lot of the things we're going through. And he said, literature is my life because politics, I'm paraphrasing here, he said, because politics never achieves what it sets out to do. Literature always does. And I thought, I love that.
Yeah, that's a good
quote. Art is what art makes it makes the impossible possible and shows us what could be. And politics fails at that over and over again. And then we wonder, why does it fail? Well, it's politics, not art.
Yeah, well said. And for those who have not listened to episode 8, I'll just give a rundown so we don't have to go through the origin story again. But you're originally from California. In 2012, you then went to, I believe, Buffalo. Were you in New York City? I know you were in New York City, and then you went to Buffalo in 2007.
Yes, exactly. I went, yeah, those are the exact, yeah, 15 years in New York City with a little stint in the Adirondacks post 9/11, and then Buffalo from 2007 to 2011.
Yeah,
So I've been back.
you were
Yeah.
teaching English and creative writing at a
Yeah.
college. You're working on your poetry. I believe your first play was Gay Wedding Crashers. And then you came back. You went to LA. You loved it. You got involved in improv when you were in teaching in Buffalo, and I think
Yeah.
that sort of got you in theater. And you won the best of, well, I don't know, you were a part of Best of Playground for your play or the Play of Life about the Higgs
Or
boson.
yes, I remember Or.
and
Yeah.
and then you wrote the musical The Right Note. Now I wonder how far did The Right Note go? I mean, because I know that it started with musical cafe, but did it evolve even further?
We had the workshop production at the beginning of, or excuse me, the end of 2018. And that was then it hit that stalled point that a lot of musicals do. It's sort of like, okay, let me tell you, I want to get back to it, but in the meantime, there's been a lot of other things. I've evolved. Hopefully, I put some energy into me evolving, and I would love to pick up that project again someday. But it's still where it was about 4 years ago, and that's not a bad place, thanks to Musical Cafe and Play Cafe and all the other resources in the Bay Area. So, yeah, thanks for asking about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, that's fine. And also, you've been, I mean, some projects can't get in the way of other projects. And it sounds like other things came in the way, which are far more important, like Tiger Bear and I'm sure, and also Life. I mean, I don't know if you met your husband. Did you guys meet or were you with him even in 2017?
We met online in 2016, so that we're coming up on 6 years next month.
Right on.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then we got married in the fall of 2018, and because I'm a glutton for punishment, I decided, we got married, had our honeymoon and everything, and then a couple weeks later we had the run of the Right Notes. So that was a pretty glorious, and end to a calendar year. Yeah, and then, gosh, 2019 was, so then a month later I thought, well, I didn't know if anything was going to happen with the Right Now, so I thought I better get Tiger Bear launched as an LLC. I didn't know if it was going to be a nonprofit or not, and I kind of held off on that until we had to really answer that question. I did gather a kind of board of directors, many of whom, Farah Dinga, or Farah as she goes by now, from Musical Cafe. She was a Musical Cafe alum. And then a few other people that I've known, Nathaniel Card, who's worked with Dragon Theater there on the peninsula and other organizations. And then, yeah, so 2019, we didn't do anything. And I did a lot of, I guess, writing is what I was doing. I wasn't really producing anything per se. And then in 2020, the first thing, the board, Farah, in fact, I think was the one who pitched it. She said, there's going to be so much, and this was post George Floyd. She said, there's so much sadness and heartache in the world. Let's infuse some joy into this. And let's see if we can find joy from peoples and communities and identities that we don't always hear about joy from. And I loved that idea. We all loved it. And so we decided to cast our net really widely. And we went, kind of across the nation to do a mini play fest, a kind of kind of like a Monday Night Playground or Best of Playground, but a Zoom version of that. And just, we had things like joy from the Haitian immigrant community. We had joy from the trans community. We had joy from the female queer community. It was just like so much fun. And what I love about that experience was how it gathered us across, we might never have met some of these people just in the circumstances of our day-to-day lives, just the travels that we have. But Zoom made it possible to do this very, very quickly. And I'm connected to them now for, as long as I'm on this planet. And then Graham Smith from Crowded Fire, and very well known. He, in fact, he and I met because he directed the second musical cafe cohort. He knew the playwright Harrison David Rivers from his own work, and said, Harrison's been hunkered down like all of us, and he's written these monologues. Would you like to produce them as Tiger Bear? They're kind of like audio dramas, and they're micro monologues. And I heard them and I was like, yeah, let's do this. I had not ever produced an audio drama. I had a vague idea of what that would be like, but it was so great to have that. So we did two things. First, the initial phase was to have actors perform the monologues as vocal, the audio dramas that they were, and then layering in the sound. And it was just, because we were all like hungered, stuck in our apartments or houses or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, the rustle of leaves and the, leaves in the wind, and a Muni streetcar going by. It just all sounds, all the things that feed us as urban humans sometimes. And then we did an ASL version of that. And that I'm very, very proud of.
Damn.
American Sign Language. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, because I thought, well, if we have an audio play, how about the audiences who hear differently? And I'm very, very proud that we found two amazing ASL actors. One of them is Brandon Kazan-Maddox. You should definitely please look him up. He's doing some amazing stuff in the ASL and acting community. And to see those monologues then interpreted in ASL with the soundtrack, I mean, I have the privilege of having hearing, so I could hear it. But just seeing how like a New York subway train car, easing into the station speaking as always, but then, and how, the sign of the here, thank you to the closing doors. You
have
like,
to have an excellent sound designer. Who's your sound designer?
Excuse me. It was Sarah Witch. She did a terrific job. Excuse me, I did it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. So shout out to Sarah. She did such an awesome job. And then singing all of theirs, so that the sign layered at the moment where the doors were closing and all this stuff. It was just fabulous. I'd love to do more of that.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, because I've never been to Palm Springs, and I imagine Tiger Bear is situated in Palm Springs. What is the theater community like there? Is it the same as the Bay Area?
Great question.
That is a great question. And thank you for asking it. It's very interesting, Norman and Reg. It's there's the demographic down here tilts older. It's more of a retiring kind of place, although that's starting to go slightly in the other direction, which is welcome energy to bring in. There's a lot of kind of like rep work, and there's LGBT theater that does amazing stuff. I want to say the very best thing I've seen down here since I've been here was a production of The Mountaintop, the Katori Hall play by, oh my God, I'm going to forget their name, Des Arts. Des Arts performs. And I know the play, I had not seen it. And I was like, is this going to be like community? I don't mean to diss community theater. I'm not doing that at all. But it's like, I'm just glad they're doing this play down here, quite honestly. So we go to this women's club, which is kind of like a school auditorium with the race thing and the the beige curtains and the clock over the thing.
Sure.
Like I felt like it was an assembly again. And that curtain went up and that play started, and those two actors that production was, and I've since learned that Michael Shaw, the AD there, his passion for theater like that is real. I hope to connect with him personally, because that was a good production.
Yeah, they did a similar production here. I think the pair may have done it, The Mountaintop, with Martin Luther King and this figure that he speaks to.
That was Michael Wayne Rice, I thought.
Yeah,
that was the other play, wasn't it?
Right, exactly. I know that because Damaris DeVito was in that. Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, a lot of people have been doing the mountaintop, and it is a powerful play.
Yeah. But the they do think, there's a great community theater, and God bless them. You know what? They take on things like Jekyll and Hyde and
Wow.
big messy musicals that I'm like, you know what? You go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Goodness.
people want to see it, and
Mhm.
then there's we just got a new artistic director at the Coachella Valley Repertory. I can't remember his name, but Paul Solona, the AD there, is leaving after many years, and he's leaving some big shoes to fill. And they do fine productions of, I saw a two-hander there or something. I was like, this is really good quality. And there's a hungry and appreciative audience here, and they don't settle for just because it's Palm Springs. It doesn't have to be, first of all, just because it's Palm Springs, it doesn't have to be LGBT, and nor does it have to be lower quality. It can be very, it can be very high. So I'm hoping, I'm just going to anticipate, you might be asking if I'm going to do anything here. And the answer is yes. I'm doing an immersive opera in the fall during LGBT. I don't want to say more because it hasn't been announced yet, but I'm very excited to sort of like push the boundaries, because one of the things people are talking about is like newness. Like, how do we can do the Shakespeare, we can do the, the plays that Broadway's doing that then come trickling down here, if you will, or trickling across or whatever. But what about like what about new works? What about plays by you, Reg? What about plays by you, Norman? What stories do you have to tell, and how can we get those in front of audiences here? So
Yeah. And it's wonderful to hear that, because you hear so many theater companies that are like, hey, we're trying to bring money in here. We can't take a chance on something new. We have to do the standards because that's what the audience wants. And it's good to see theater companies or production companies saying, you know what, let's take a chance. So we need more of that.
Mm.
that's one of the things, and if I may use
Yeah.
this as a way to springboard into like what the Magic is doing, as I know many of your audience may know, I'm now the producer of play development at the Magic. Yay! Under
Yay,
Sean,
that's right.
working with that fantastic cohort of Campo Santo people and all the community that I have loved and respected so much in the Bay Area and appreciated. The new play energy at the Magic is real. I was just talking with someone about how, the Lark shut down, the Humana Festival shut down, there's something else shut down. And I was like, where are people going to go? Where are playwrights going to go to get new plays, developed, or even just, just heard? Do they need to be heard by an audience and heard out loud, read out loud, and things like that? So I will say that the Bay Area has fabulous resources for all of that, but more can always be done for new plays.
Yeah. And it sounds like you still have, it's funny, I went on the Magic website to find your name, because I was like, I'm sure, I think that he's the new executive director, and I didn't see your name. I don't know if they had updated your the website as of yet, but I remember that I saw that you were a part of that. So that's good. The question that I have is, so a lot of people who, when they leave the Bay Area, they're like, okay, so that's it for theater, or at least Bay Area theater, but you still have a foothold there, like your involvement with the Magic Theater. I guess the best question is, what is it about the Bay Area that still holds, that you still hold on to?
I love that question, Reg, because you know what? I was so prepared. I'm going to full confession. I was so prepared to make it a clean break. More from logistical reasons. I was like, what I didn't want to be doing. I'll be honest, like, I'm interested in the community in LA too, and I am connecting to that and engaging with that more often, partly because I think that's another vector where, the possibility for new work goes. We can talk about that in a moment. And I think that as a theater town, LA is underrated. There are a lot of great theater actors and companies and productions there.
Right.
It's not just all, the studios and the industry that but when I moved down here, I thought, oh, okay, so I'm going to focus on Palm Springs and the Southland. And, if I get back to San Francisco, great. And then COVID happened. and I couldn't go anywhere and couldn't do anything. But it gave me time to be down here and realize, there's stuff I got to know the community. I thought there's stuff I can do locally, but there's stuff that I can't do locally in Palm Springs. And it's the sort of stuff that you can only do in a community like the Bay Area or LA with all of their diversities and things. I'll tell you, I fly from Palm Springs to Oakland, and I land in the Oakland airport. I'm like, these are my peeps. I like the diversity in this airport just makes my heart, do good. Not just Palm Springs, but I'm like, oh my God, I forget I need that. It's what I grew up with. I'm one of 13 adopted and foster kids from around the world. It's my literally my home is diverse. My family is diverse. So it pumps spirit and energy into me. So
did the magic reach out to you, or did you reach out to them?
I was just gonna say that. So that's kind of what happened was we were gonna Tiger Bear is producing Deal with the Dragon in a few months. And we had planned to do this in 2020, and we were going to do a pre-run on our way to New York at the Magic. And so I had a relationship there. I reached out to see if it was available. And Liam Vincent, who was with the Playground organization, has become assistant AD under Sean, or with Sean. And he said, hey, I think we could use you here at the Magic. And I think this could be a really great symbiotic kind of relationship. And I was like, oh, wow, well, that's very flattering. And I really had to ask Reg in response to your question about the Bay, I was like, oh my God, do I have to move back to the Bay Area? And they said, no. They said, but your support from afar would mean a lot, and I thought, okay, well, I probably will get back there anyway. Let me talk. And I wanted to meet Sean. I knew Sean with great admiration and love and respect as an artist and as a Combo Santo leader. He and I had never actually met. So it was just one of those things where I met Sean personally and we had a conversation, and I was like, I want this conversation to continue for the rest of my life.
Yay.
And I was like, I am in the right place. I just felt like it was all very almost divinely. I mean, I think our ancestors and spirit from afar here, it was just all of that energy pushing me into this new role. I want to shout out to Graham Smith too, again, because he said, the Magic as an institution will give you a chance to learn, from a historic institution like that. That is making a change like you are. You can all learn together, and you can learn that as an independent producer. And I was like, I have to say, I just have to say the yes that the universe is saying.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a wonderful surprise hearing the announcement. It was like, oh damn, because this is, we always complain about these outsiders coming in, and then they either don't know what Bay Area theater is and they want to redefine it, or they, it just never feels like it's somebody who's actually been in the trenches doing it that gets that, that offer. So I was like, oh shit, Jerome knows this. This is a good mix. This is a good partnering. And it also raised I know Sean and have much respect for him, but it raised my respect because I was like, Sean's not afraid to talk to the people who are already in this theatrical conversation.
Oh, Norman, thank you so much. That's so good to hear. It just really, it validates a lot of, it's just been a beautiful thing, and like, people like Star Finch and Britt Fraser and Ashley Smiley, and like, there's so many people that I can't wait that we're already doing this for, raising up their voices and stuff. And I'll tell you, like, when I'm at the Magic, like, I think a lot of us diss the location, and I think that's wrong, because when you go to the Magic and you're standing there, you're standing on the shore of the continental United States, more or less, although it's land.
Yeah.
You can see, the waters that the the Native American forebears. I happen to be Native American, but I'm not Ohlone or Miwok or anything. But those are the waters that they paddled to live on and thrive on. There's
Yeah.
Angel Island, which is across where so many immigrants came in. There's the
Yeah.
Golden Gate Bridge where European immigrants explored and Chinese immigrants and Asian immigrants sailed through. It's just, and then the African American people who worked and immigrated into the Bay Area from the Navy, their naval service during World War II. Though that location is as storied as it gets, as special and as storied, and the energy is real for it.
Yeah. It
No, and
reminds.
I would love to see that as more. I would love to hear that more as the Magic talks about its identity, because that is the challenge of Fort Mason. If you're pretending that you wish you were downtown, you're not downtown. So go ahead and own where you are and give it that beautiful bullseye is like, oh shit, yeah, of course I want to come here.
Yeah.
I mean, having worked at Bats and also the Magic Theater, and there's another Gateway Theater, I think that's where it is. It's a great place for audiences. Like, hey, even when you step out of the theater and you had a wonderful experience in the theater, now you got to see the ocean and all of that stuff. And when we finished doing the Baldwin project, actually before we did the Baldwin project, you have the thing, Norman, where you're always acknowledging the indigenous people who were
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Your little speech.
Yeah,
So,
the land acknowledgement. I mean, it's a fairly common thing now, and hopefully it helps. Hopefully it cracks the door open to actually doing something to say, what can we responsibly do to make right the wrongs that allow us to be where we are?
yeah.
We if we are happy for the lives that we're living, we owe a debt. How do we honor that debt? How do we repay that debt?
Yeah. We're getting close to 12 o'clock. I did have a question for you, Jerome, because you have produced so many things. And I tend to think I have to remind myself that the producer is sort of an artist as well. Do you consider yourself an artist when you select projects that you want to work on or the people that you want to work on? You may not be on stage and your writings may not even be featured, but as a producer, your selection of the topic matters and the people, that's sort of an artistic creation or a choice itself. Do you see yourself as an artist, as a producer?
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to say this, I've never thought about it, but I think the best I think the best producers have that. They may not articulate it that way, but I just said to somebody, I would throw myself in front of a bus for this play, and it's not mine, and that's the kind of feeling I want to have. So it's not just about like, people know that there's a financial side to producing, but there's also a passion side to producing. And maybe that passion side is the more important one. So yeah, I think, this is something that I do to bring into from maybe my corporate, experience. It's like the best teams, I'll just say like I'm leaving tech to do this full time in a couple weeks, and I'm leaving the most carefully and humanistically crafted tech team I've ever worked on. And what it took to assemble that team, just, I don't know, I'll spend a long time like pondering how was that put together. And that's art,
Yeah.
that's where the human heart meets the human ability to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I imagine I've asked this with other directors and producers, you make a statement. It's not like you're going to do Oklahoma or Annie Get Your Gun. You're making a statement when you have, like I'm looking right now, Innocent Munster. I think you're working with Sandhya. Is that her name?
In
Upcoming production, Sandia, a house concert.
Oh, yes. She's coming for a house concert here in Palm Springs. So that's something that we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And Prince Charming, you're late. I mean, I'm just looking at the website of Tiger Bear Productions. And, like I said, these are choices that you make where you say, hey, this is what Tiger Bear is going to be all about. This is what a Jerome Gentes production is all about. The decisions that you make, which makes an imprint.
You're an artist, and let my art be how to lift you up.
Yep.
And get you heard and seen.
Nice.
Exactly right. I want to be respectful of people's time. Is it time to shut it up? I mean, well, one last question. I mean, where do you see yourself? Where do you see Tiger Bear in the future? I mean, do you want to get into streaming? Is Tiger Bear going to sort of be a repository where other film directors or whatever can say, hey, we need someone to produce our work? Um, where does Tiger Bear go from here?
A good question. We have a pretty, as you say, please look at our site, tigerbearproductions.com. We still haven't even put all the stuff we're doing in this year on that site. That's going to happen in the next few weeks. So we have Sandia, a house concert here in 2 weeks. We have Prince Charming Your Late in New York in late June, Deal with the Dragon at the Magic in July, August, and then the to be announced immersive opera here in Palm Springs at the end of October. So that's plenty for now. But going forward, what you're asking, Reg, is true. It's sort of like, all right, how are we going to do things like streaming? I'd love to do more, virtual reality sorts of things, extended reality things, integrate those sorts of things. I can't wait to see what happens at the Magic in 2023. So lots to come. I'm going to be doing this full time starting in 2 weeks on.
Yay!
Yeah.
Damn.
April 29th is my last day in the tech industry, and then I'm a full-time producer and creator, and lifting up these stories will be my full-time job. And as I say, I mean that every way we can, because everyone, maybe there's a story like Tony Stone that needs to be experienced with a mix of augmented reality and a stage, like a Pokemon game or something like that. There's an artist out there hungering for a platform to do that on, and we'd like to be that.
And a production team that will treat everything, not just the subject matter, but also the characters, the actors, with respect. Because you're actually right. A story like Tony Stone, the first female Negro leaguer, needs to be told, but it needs to be told with respect. And I think if you have a production company that will do that, that's wonderful. And the evolution of you, I mean, that's a dream come true, to say, hey, the hell with my job, the day job. Now my artistry has risen to a point where I can actually make a living doing it. And that's all that I'm doing. I mean, I think that's something that all of us will want to achieve to do. And you're doing it. So that's fantastic, Jerome. Time for birthdays, shout outs, birthdays.
Jen Coogan's birthday is coming up. Speaking of Musical Cafe.
Yes.
Susan Dunn, it's so funny because our conversation hasn't been as specific to here's a play and we're getting actors and we're putting it up. We're talking more about the sort of nuts and bolts of it and that passion that allows people to support making that happen. Susan Dunn is one of those folks in Bay Area who her love of theater is so strong. They do these readings at her house. They've done other projects around. Yeah. And I don't know how many.
She did a reading for one of my plays.
She what?
She did a reading for one of my plays. So thanks to Susan Dunn. Yeah.
Yeah. So Susan Dunn's birthday's coming up this week. Peter Macon is an actor. I've never made a list of all the times I've understudied, but I understudied at Cal Shakes, and Peter Macon was understudying Othello, and I will never forget going out after the show. Everybody's out in the lobby, it's like opening night, and they're having wine out there, and after the toast, everybody's still out there mingling. We come back in onto that beautiful stage under the moonlight. Peter Macon on stage running through Othello with me holding book for him was just one of the joys of my acting career. And now he's bouncing all over the place, and he ends up in New York pretty regular. My phone did a spell thing, jubilation. No, Jubilith Moore was one of the folks at the No Space, the Theater of Eugen, for many years, an amazing performer, and especially in that Japanese traditional style. Brad Erickson, the Bay Area. Did they move or did he just step down?
They moved. Yeah, they're in Charleston now. But he was just recent. He's actually at the Jurassic Center, I think, or maybe
that's great.
Yeah, he's wrapping that up.
watching TBA try to figure out what they're going to do next. And it's like, you know what you're not going to do? Don't try to be Brad. Because Brad was amazing and singular. And Brad would put out a message, the way leaders do about how we're thinking about doing this. And then he'd come back a year later, 2 years later, and say, we talked about that, and this is what's happening. It was amazing to watch. And I think the lesson is figure out what your passion is and what you can do with the resources you have, and launch from there. Don't try to imitate what somebody else did. Brad really did reconfigure the organization in his vision, and with much community buy-in and help, and now it's time to go in a new direction. And I hope we can honor Brad by making TBA as vibrant and wonderful as it has been. Anyway, his birthday is this week. Colin Thompson, wonderful actor. I won't say old, but we've been doing it a long time. And I think we've only actually been on stage together once in the Scottish play, where we had one little scene saying, it's the one where they're kind of talking in code about how weird things are right now. Like Banquo, it doesn't pay to walk late at night because things happen. But yeah, and it's always exciting to see his name come up in, where was he? ACT, like a couple of years ago, and then back at the Dean Lusher doing something recently. I'm like, yay, yes, we're old, but we're still doing it. Skylar Rose Adams is somebody on the total opposite end of the spectrum. She was one of the youngest people in As You Like It when I did that with SF Shakes a couple of summers ago, and I think she's just finishing up college. Look forward to seeing where her career will go. Will Hammond, I probably stole that from you.
Don't worry about it.
Wonderful actor, musician, really powerful musician. And was he the one who finally figured out what our theme song was?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And of course, if it will be anyone, it will be Will. Happy birthday, Will.
Happy birthday to
I will call you.
and all of them.
My wife is heading off to St. Helena, something like that, for a wedding gig. Cole Alexander Smith is an actor I met through Central Works. I will save this one for you, Reg, because I assume you will have it on your list. And the last one I have is Teresa Diane Elizabeth Horn, an actress I believe I met down at Theater Works.
All right.
Those are the birthday kids I have this week.
And the list that I believe you saved this for me, and Yumi Kabori, her birthday will be on the 20th. Fantastic. She headed up, oh shucks, what was it? It was Utopia Theater.
Utopia Theater.
Fantastic actress, and she's on stage now. She's doing Coffee Lady, and her piece will be something that we'll be featuring in Pear Slices. She's doing two pieces that I'm acting in. Love working on her work, and I'm learning a lot as a playwright from her. She is an exceptional talent. Also on the 20th, Lance Fuller is a actor. He's not in the Bay Area anymore. I believe he's in New York. But we did Debbie Does Dallas the musical, and he was fantastic in that. We had a lot of fun with that. And that's it. Shows.
I'm still stuck in the same place at Central Works and Water by the Spoonful for one more week.
Yep.
At the SF Playhouse.
A couple of shows that I will push. Crowns by the Contra Costa Civic Theater is being directed by Kimberly Ridgway.
Damn.
So that'll be April the 22nd through May the 15th. So check that out. We've talked about Jeannie Baroga, her book, Turn Right at the Water Buffalo. Jeannie is a playwright, but she's also a what do they call her? Book writer. She's a novelist. Yes, thank you. And she's doing the book reading at the FANSHS Museum in Stockton. That'll be April the 24th. So I just want to remind people about that. And there's a link, a YouTube link, to talk more about funds and also Turn Right at the Water Buffalo. The Pear Theater is still doing Fresh Baked Pears, April the 22nd and the 23rd. Kimberly Ridgway, once again, has a piece in that show. So we have a link to that. Pear Slices, I'm doing rehearsals for that, and that'll be May the 6th through the 29th. That'll also be live and also streamed, so we'll be advertising that. Damn Yankees by the Tri-Valley Repertory Theater. That'll be April the 30th through May the 15th. Stephen McLeod, he's been on the show. He's in the show. Endlings, That'll be April the 8th. It'll end May the 1st. That the Oakland Theater Project is doing that. Joyce DeMonico Ha is in that show. That's the show about the Asian women who do deep sea diving.
Oh, right.
So
yes.
that's the historical piece. Also, Stories High 22 will be beginning, and they're doing a directing workshop with Li Ling Ao. She's still doing that every Wednesdays from April the 20th through May the 18th, and also Mondays. Also, Jet Presario is doing the acting workshop, and that'll be every Tuesday live, beginning April the 19th through June the 6th. So if you're looking to learn about acting or about directing, you should check that out. Steel Magnolias, the Sierra Repertory Theater, they're still doing that April the 14th through May the 15th. Eiko Yamamoto is in that. Coffee Lady, we talked about that. Anne McGrory is in the piece. And Bridget Dunn Portman, who we've had on the show, wrote the piece. So check that out.
Yay, Bridget.
Yeah, Bridget Dunn Portman, she's just awesome. August Osage County is being done at the San Jose stage. Terrence Smith and Letitia Duarte is in that show, March the 30th through April the 24th. Viet Gong, City Lights Theater, Jeffrey Lowe is directing that piece. That ends April the 24th. So I think next week will be the last week for that. Yeah, that's right. Escape from the Asylum, that extends. You talked about this.
Central Works, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Central Works, that'll be extended to April the 24th.
Patricia, yay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Alan Coyne.
Yeah.
Alan Coyne and Jan Leifer is in that, and Gary Graves is, of course, directing it. Allegiance, Palo Alto Players. That ends May the 8th. It opens April the 22nd. Mara Sotelo is in that. That's the piece about the Japanese internment, I believe. Palo Alto Players. So check that out. Barry Graves has a podcast, The Black Man's Heart. So check that out. Mallory Samara, our consulting producer, is also, her day job is KCBS Radio. And she has a podcast, Connect the Dots. So check that out, a weekly podcast, news podcast. Also, Bindlestiff Studios has the Fobcast. So check that out as well. That is it. Jerome, did you have a good time?
I had a great time, you guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you and talk with you and share with you.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much.
Audio.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've improved since the 8th episode, but once again, all of the people who have been a part of a part of the Yay has helped grow the Yay. Speaking of growing, jerseys. So we still have jerseys. So we have white, we have black, we have the pinstripes. So if you want a jersey, it's $30. So hit me up, PM me, and I'll hook you up. That is it. You're listening to this on the, if you're listening to this, you're probably listening to this on the podcast app that you have on your iPad or iPhone, the Purple Podcast app. We're also on Spotify, and we're also on the SoundCloud.com, or also the SoundCloud app. Also, since we're doing this via Zoom, we'll put this on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube looking at this, please like and subscribe and let us know what you like and what you don't like about the show, and we will fine tune things the way that you would like it. The Yay was created by theater people for theater people. If you have a show you want to advertise, or if you just want to advertise yourself, let us know on Twitter. We're at the Yay3. That's our official Twitter feed. I'm also at the Reg Space Clay.
And I'm at Hoosier.
Jerome, are you on social media at all? People should also check out JeromeJosephGentes.com. That's your official website.
Yay.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter, JJ Gentes, and all the things you can find me. Jerome Joseph Gentes is what I use for my name, but if I can't grab that, it doesn't fit on Twitter.
Not a problem at all.
Right.
And I encourage the creatives, if you have a play or if you have a even a film or whatever, you may want to hit up Jerome, because it sounds like shoot, I took down the thing, but Jerome may be interested in producing what you're doing. Tiger Bear.
Yeah.
Tiger Bear Productions may be interested at all. So check that out. Jerome, thank you so much. It's a wonderful Saturday. It stopped raining, so I'm going to head on out to get some lunch.
Yay.
Yay, exactly.
Yay.
And as Norman and I always say, we've got to find
a better sign off.
And we are out.